Welcome, guys. Another episode. Welcome to another episode of Money Mondays. I'm giving you guys some time to join in because this is going to be fun. And normally I have Betzy with me today, but Betzy isn't feeling so well. So, Betzy, hope that you get well soon. So, for everyone that's joining us, thank you and welcome to Money Mondays, where we are focused on raising private capital. So, whether you are new or an experienced investor, understanding the art of raising private capital is crucial in today's competitive landscape. So, join us as we navigate the complex realm of attracting investors, securing funding, and building meaningful relationships that fuel your business growth. All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Money Mondays. I mean, it's sad. I don't have Betzy, my partner, who's always here, my co host. She's not feeling well. So I really hope that you get better soon, Betzy. It's been a little bit tough, but I know you're here with us in spirit, you know. Welcome, guys. Today we'll basically be talking about, well, you can ask me anything as it relates to raising private capital. A lot of persons always talk about they want to pick your brain about raising capital. So this is the opportunity for you to pick my brain about raising private capital, and everything that we share here, it's really our opinion, it's our experience. So always seek legal counsel. So before we even I go in, I want to share this with you guys that the following information is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence. We do not provide financial or legal advice. So, guys, we are, well, today, just me, just providing my experience, what I've seen when it comes on to raising private capital for projects in the market. And it's an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions that you might have. If you're streaming from Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're streaming from, or even if you're listening after this as well, like if you have questions, drop them in the comments. If you have questions about anything raising private capital, it could be a completely like newbie question. That's totally fine. Drop them in the comments as well, and we'll talk about that. Let's see. Don't be shy, guys. One of the thing is that we're seeing with raising private capital is that persons now are trying to make sure that they are. Hi, Markeisha. Yes, I really hope that she gets well soon. We were on like Zoom this morning, and she was like, "Oh, I don't think I can make it." I'm like, "Girl, that is totally fine. That is totally fine." But one of the things that I see really is that when persons are trying to raise capital for their project, right? Let's say they have been doing wholesaling for a really long time. And now they're like, okay, now I want to do my first fix and flip, or now I want to do my first rental property. And they're like, Keleisha, I don't have any experience. But I'm like, what do you mean? Are you completely new to the business? And they're like, no, but I just haven't done a fix and flip before. But I'm like, what have you done? And when they talk about they've wholesale this amount of deals in X time, they've been doing wholesaling for 3-4 years. And I'm like, that is your experience. And I think a lot of persons don't realize that you being a part of the team, finding leads, you being a part of the team and doing the underwriting process as well is considered experience, because you're learning how to underwrite, you're learning about what's a good deal, what's a bad deal. There's so many different things that you're learning about that entire transaction. So your wholesaling experience, it's an experience, it's something, right? Another thing people always ask is like, okay, how do I build credibility? And of course, you hear about posting on social media, right? And that's also very general. And I think when we hear social media, we will think about that we need a whole team, we need these fancy videos, and we need all those things. But really, you do not, because let's say you attend a networking event. You take photos of people. You always talk about, hey, let's take a photo. But what do you really do with that photo? Like, you can just make a post to state that you were at a real estate networking event. And the reason why those things goes a long way, it's because when you start raising capital or asking people to lend you money, they're going to research you. So most persons as well, they're going to go on Facebook and they're going to type in your name and see what comes up. So if they type your name in Facebook, for example, and it pops up that you're always at networking events, you attend conferences, you're learning how to underwrite a deal, or you're in a Zoom that's talking about finding deals or funding deals, it shows that you're doing something, but when you just don't post at all, it makes it tough to build your credibility. Not saying you need to post every single day, because I know a lot of persons will push that you need to post on social media every single day or twice a day and spend X amount of time on Instagram. You can simply start off with just posting 3 times for the week. And it doesn't have to be posting on every single platform, because I don't post on every single platform. I choose the platform that you're most comfortable with. So if you really like Facebook, post on Facebook and just be consistent with posting on Facebook until you get comfortable posting on Instagram. If you like Instagram more, then post on Instagram more. If you like doing videos and you like posting stuff on YouTube, post on that more as well. The point of it is you're building your credibility, and that's all you want to do, because anyone who's going to lend you money, they want to know that this person is credible. So that's one way to use social media to build your credibility. And it really could be you just sharing a win that you have for the day. Maybe your win was you made an offer or you made 5 offers. That's a win. That's something that you're doing. And you can post maybe a lesson learned about something that you're doing within the space as well. So there are different things that you can share on social media that would really help to build your credibility. Some persons as well, like, they're afraid of posting, but if you're in different Facebook groups, right? The different Facebook groups will help to build that credibility, because some persons may not like to do videos, but maybe someone asks questions and stuff like that, and they're able to answer those questions, right? So I found private money lenders because I was very active in Facebook groups, and they found me. We were both in a Facebook group. I didn't know that person, but what they did was they typed my name in the members, and they basically looked on all the stuff I've been involved in, like making comments, helping persons with any questions that they have. They saw how active I was in that community. So they reached out and they felt comfortable to a point where, but just because I was posting, it helped to build my credibility in Facebook. And that's social media in a whole again. So persons will think as well, building credibility on social media, it needs to be all platforms, it needs to be only videos, but it's really just sharing the process, sharing your story, about the stuff that you are doing. So for those who are just joining us, it's really Ask Me Anything. as it relates to raising private capital. If you have any questions at all, then you drop those questions in the chat. So a lot of times people ask, Keleisha, I want to pick your brain about raising capital. So this is the opportunity for you to pick my brain. Okay. Also sharing that what I've seen that's very helpful is you checking in with your private money lenders, right? You don't only reach out only when you need money. So just checking in and to see if they need help with anything, like, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything that I can help you with? Any contacts or referrals that you need? It's just those simple things, because then you're now continuing to build that relationship with that private money lender. You're also staying top of mind with that private money lender, because especially if they're well known for being a private money lender, everyone is asking them for money, right? Everyone is asking these persons for private money. But if you can be like top of mind or stand out really to that private money lender, it's gonna help you a ton, especially when you're ready for money. So just check in. And it's not something like, not saying you need to like kiki with your private money lenders or talking to them every single day, but at least dedicated time, let's say once or twice a month, where everyone who you think could be a potential private money lender or who is your private money lender, you can just check in with them to just see, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything else that I can help you with? And all that good stuff, right? So don't just reach out only when you need money, you guys. Like, reach out and ask for help. Again, for those who are watching, you can pick my brain about raising capital, and I'm just touching on some stuff while I know persons are in and out, right? What else? Another thing that I'm seeing a lot too when it comes on to raising money is over leveraging. What that means is over leveraging or taking on, not even over leveraging, but taking on too much debt, right? So for example, let's say you have a property and that property is worth $200,000. The debt is, let's say, 150, and you borrow 30,000. Or you borrow like 60,000, right? Or 70,000, which means the property is now worth 250, but you are in debt about over the 200, right? So again, over leveraging, which means you're over borrowing. And that's, I'm seeing that a lot, because if a property is worth 200,000 and the mortgage payment is 150 and you're borrowing another 60 to 70,000, you're borrowing way more than what the property is worth. So, and a lot of times that's happened because persons just want to get the deal done, right? And they just want to get their first deal. So then they basically borrow so much money, and there's no wiggle room, there's no backup plan to repay that money. And that's where a lot of times, I mean, if you have a property that you can cross collateralize on, then that's different. But if you don't have a property for you to cross collateralize on, then don't take on more debt for one particular property when you know that it's not going to work out, or it's not even not going to work out, but it can be very risky, especially if this is your first deal. It can be very risky to take on a lot of debt, or borrow a lot of money, because then what you're not considering as well is that even though you're borrowing $70,000 or $60,000, that's not what you're repaying. You also have interest payments that you're repaying. And more than likely, you might even come out of pocket for something else. So try not to borrow more money than you need. Because even if, let me even correct that. Try not to borrow like too much money. Put it that way. Like, really, like, you can want the money so bad, but I'm seeing this a lot, like in trying to help people to raise capital for their deal. And when my team and I when we start asking them like, why do you need this money? What is the money being used for? And all those things. And then when you look on what the underlying debt is and what the properties were, I'm like, you're going to sink your own self and you don't even know it. Some persons will be upset. Some persons, after we break it down to show what's really happening or for the deal or why we can't raise capital for it, most times they see that, okay, this is a risky deal as well. So don't over leverage, guys. Like, I know sometimes we all want that deal to work out. We need funding for that deal, but just don't don't over leverage. Pass on it. Keep making offer. Look at something else. There's plenty more coming up. And just keep making offers and don't get attached to that deal. What else is there? I'm just trying to, off the top of my head, like talk about the things that I'm seeing in the space right now with how everything is going. And a lot of things that I'm seeing happening is when a lot of investors not having a second exit strategy. Um, and it's tough. It's really tough because then if you don't have a plan, you're like, oh, I am doomed, right? So always recommend having at least two exit strategies, except especially now, for example, wraps. Wraps are very common right now, and everyone thinks you can do wrap in every single city or state, but that's not the case. um you got to know the market. You got to know, okay, why would wrap work in this market? You got to know why, and you got to know that if the wrap doesn't work out, what is my backup plan? On average now, persons think that, okay, I can buy a property um subject to seller finance and wrap it, and it will be they'll get a tenant in there in 30 days, right? And you won't. Like, it's not like that. So you find that a lot of times you have 3 months, you go through, you don't have a wrap buyer, and now you need to repay the PML because you said you borrowed the money for the wrap buyer for 3 months. Right? So you borrowed $30,000 for 3 months because you're like, hey, I'm gonna find a wrap buyer in 3 months. What do you do? Like, what do you do in that time? Hi, auntie. Oh, my auntie's amazing. She's here. But what do you do in that time? So honestly, like, if the property works as a wrap, that's great. But what if the wrap doesn't work out? Can you do a rent by the room, or can you do a lease option? So you gotta make sure that you have multiple exit strategies. Like, now I see like really experienced investors when like we get deals for it to be funded. And if it's a wrap, they have like, okay, this is the wrap and we need the money for 6 months. It's no longer need the money for 3 months. We need the money for 6 months. At month 2 or at month 3, if we cannot sell this wrap, we're going to pivot and do this strategy. And we already have the numbers and we know what we need to switch to exit strategy number 2. Because you don't want to be like, yeah, what am I going to do? Da, da, da. And then you start freaking out. And because you're freaking out because you need to repay that lender, you can't even think properly because your mind is, I need to pay this lender back. So it is so important to have a backup exit strategy. Like, I can't stress this enough. I think this year, all the properties that I've done, I had to switch to another exit strategy. Yeah, every property that I've acquired in 2023, I bought it with, like, let's say, to do a rental or a short-term rental, and then in the middle of it I had to pivot and do something else. And it's a good thing I had to pivot. I was comfortable pivoting because I knew if first exit strategy didn't work, I had a backup. I knew the numbers. I knew what I need to do. I accounted for those as well in the cost. So again, for those who are just joining us, it's your opportunity to ask me anything as it relates to raising private capital, for real estate. You can pick my brain, ask me any single question you want, just drop them in the comments. We have some time here. And I'm just sharing what I'm seeing as it relates to private capital, what lenders are looking for, what are some of the pitfalls that I'm seeing happening now, or common mistakes, creative deal structuring that I'm seeing. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. No question is too basic or too much of a newbie. I have a very interesting deal that I want to share, but I won't share it yet. Reason being, it's going to be very interesting. We're going to do a case study of a deal where we had to do a loan extension, and there was so much debt, with the deal. But thank God we came up with a solution, with the borrower and the lender. So we came up with a solution, and thank God that lender is going to get their money back. So that's going to be a very, very interesting case study that we're going to do. How do I share this live? To be honest, I have no clue. I think if you're on Facebook, there's an option like that arrow, that share arrow, I think, or you can like copy the link or something like that. I do not remember. See, yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, what else? As I said that, and you guys hear this all the time. Being able to raise private capital, it's a valuable skill to have. And when I say that, I mean not necessarily for real estate, because if you learn the basics with raising capital for real estate, right? You can raise capital for businesses, you can raise capital for literally anything, because it's the same skill set. If you know how to ensure someone's money protected, if you know what's a good deal versus a bad deal, it's literally the same concept. It's just a different industry. That's it. So not saying that, okay, if you know how to raise capital for real estate, then you got to learn how to raise capital for business. Yes, there's some slight difference, but if you know the basics, you can learn and you can improve and you can become better. And the skills, the things that you learn on how to raise capital for real estate, you can turn that into raising capital for business and vice versa. So having that skill is very crucial. It's not just going to someone whenever you need money and be like, can you lend me $10,000? So it's not just like that, right? You have to build that relationship and start connecting with people, start reaching out with people if you want to raise capital. And I think I'm seeing a lot, and I still do. And I think I used to do it when I started. They always say, like, if you don't know, then you really don't know, right? But just saying, where all my PMLs at, right? I see that's a very common thing that persons will make just a post. Where all my PMLs at? I need a deal that needs to be funded. Now, that is very, very broad. Especially if, like, most lenders won't even post that they're lenders. A lot of times you have persons that will post that they're lenders, but a lot of lenders won't post that they're lenders. They'll just be scrolling through Facebook or wherever it is, and they're looking for opportunities. So if you post that info about the deal, then if you have all the info and it interests them or it catches their attention, they're going to reach out and ask you for more info. But if you're like, where are my PMLs at? Or where are my lenders at? Like, most persons are going to just skip over your post as well. So I think one way to really find lenders is to be strategic. And I'm going to give you guys a tip. You can go in the Facebook groups and you search for lenders, or you search keywords such as PMLs, or you search keywords such as whatever is anything money related that you're looking for, right? You do that and you take the time, and anyone who uses those words, you send them a message. You literally send that person a message to be like, hey, I saw that you made a comment under this post that you're a lender or blah, blah, blah. I want to see if I can bring some opportunities to you or something like that. Again, instead of posting, right, that you are looking for PMLs or where my PMLs at, do a keyword search in different Facebook groups or forums or wherever that you're a part of. Do those keyword search. And then when you find persons who maybe comment under an opportunity or something like that, send those person a private message, right? And that's how you can connect with those persons as well. And that's how you can start raising private capital the right way, because you just reaching out to someone like, I need money, like, no, there's a whole different approach. And I said, guys, I used to do this, right? I used to post that where all my PMLs at. But when you know better, you got to do better. And now it's up to you to communicate with other persons and share all the things that you have learned as well. And you become better, you do better, and you just try to help and educate persons as well. Again, guys, drop your questions. Anything that you want to ask about private capital, real estate, anything it is, like, drop your questions. You can even ask me, how am I finding my private money lenders, any deals that I've done, if I've ever lost anyone's money, like, feel free to drop those questions here. Another thing that I would recommend for anyone who is raising capital, or you have used private money before, try this thing where you keep track of keep track of the total capital raise. So especially if you're a connector or a newbie, like sometimes if it's just like you made 20,000, you raised $20,000, like create an Excel sheet and be like, okay, for Tampa deal, I raised $20,000. Every single deal that you make a connection for, keep track of how much money you raised. That way, at the end of the year or at the end of 6 months or whatever, you can see that, oh my God, I've raised $100,000 in 6 months. Because you might think you need $600,000 for a deal, $100,000 for a deal, and you think it's impossible. But when you keep track of your progress to see how much money you've raised, you realize, one, it's not hard. It's not that hard. And you realize that too, you can do this. You literally got this. So keep track of all the money you've raised. That really kind of helps you. It boosts your confidence. It makes you become better. It pushes you to really master that craft. Manny said, can you share your vetting process? I'm a newbie, wannabe PML. So can you clarify if that is the vetting process for a borrower or the vetting process for a private money lender? Because yes, guys, I also vet private money lenders. And the reason why I vet private money lenders, because I want to see if they are a good fit for us to work together as well. Because not everyone, because they have money, mean that they're a good fit for you. As a borrower, okay. So as a borrower, a process would be, if they have a deal and they want us to fund, they have to pass, before we vet the borrower, they have to pass our underwriting stage. So if they don't pass the underwriting stage, then we're not even going to raise capital for them. So if they pass the underwriting stage, which the loan amount should not be a certain amount, which is, we try not to raise for any new persons, not new person, but if we've never worked with you before, we don't raise the max amount that we raise, $150,000. Two is that your deal has to have 2 exit strategies, which we ask you on the form as well that you fill out. What are the 2 exit strategies that you have? We also use the numbers that you provide, but we also do our due diligence and verify those numbers. We use that. So the goal is, we want to make sure that whatever amount that you are borrowing, you're able to repay all the underlying debt. You're able to repay that lender plus the interest. and have a good spread. So let's say, for example, it's a fix and flip project and someone wants us to raise capital for that project. If their margin is like, let's say 8% or 7%, then we're like, hey, we can't raise capital for you on this particular deal. And here's why: your margins needs to be at least 12 to 15%. Or you need to reduce your purchase price. So they have to pass the underwriting stage. Once they do pass the underwriting stage, now my job is to vet you, the borrower. So I need to figure out what is your experience. And again, if this is your first project, I'm now asking you, who's on your team? Tell me about your contractor. Tell me about any other real estate experience that you have. Why have you decided to do a fix and flip? Do you have an agent? And I start asking different questions. Do you have a property that the lender that you can cross collateralize on? Because for most lenders, you're new. What happens if you can't get their money back? Do you have another property that can cross collateralize on? I also ask them, like, are you open to doing equity split as well? Reason being, you can find a private money lender who would be okay partnering with someone and then splitting the profits, even if that person, it's their first deal. So we vet all those things. For the borrower, we do not run credit at all. We don't run credit, but we also always ask the lender if the lender is interested in the deal. We still have a meeting with the lender and the borrower so they can have that conversation. Another thing is that at this point too, we just make sure that everything checks out with the deal. If they let's say they said that the property is going to be worth 300,000 for the ARV, but we cannot find anything to match that 300,000 ARV. We ask them, where are you getting your numbers from for this 300,000 ARV? A lot of times, and what we're seeing now is that persons, when they submit the form for us to raise capital, they went ahead and they have done an appraisal report. And that, when raising capital, it makes it easier for that lender to lend on that deal, because they're like, oh, there's an appraisal report. These are the comparables. This is legit. So that's also like another point that really helped to get your deal funded. And I think just having another property with equity would make it easier for another property equity to make it easier to cross collateralize. For example, let's say you want to borrow $50,000 on a fix and flip, and the project is worth, let's say, $40,000, right? If you have another property with $50,000 or more in equity, then you can cross collateralize that. What that means is, if, for example, you default, right, or you disappear, the lender has a way to get his money back because you have another asset that has that value, right? So he can always find a way to get his money back. Whereas if he's the property that you're fixing up, most lenders, they don't want to take up a house that needs a lot of work. They're in it to make money. They don't want to do the work of renovating. But if you have an asset that has a ton of equity in it, it's a way for them to get their money back. So the goal is, what can you do to ensure that that lender have so many different options for them to really get their money back? So hope that helps, Manny. That's how we vet the borrower. And a lot of it just has to do with conversations that we have with the lender, with the borrowers. And we look on the deal as well, as much as possible, to ensure that, again, the goal is to ensure that there's so many different options for that lender to get their money back. It's not just about having your promissory note and your deed of trust. Like, what else do you have in place so they can get their money back as well? So for those who are just joining us, we're talking about just ask me anything as it relates to raising private capital, as it relates to real estate, anything like that. Oh my God, my nose is just itching nonstop, and I don't know why. But for those who are just joining, you can just ask anything as it relates to raising capital. Real estate doesn't have to be, it could be a completely new question. it's an opportunity to pick my brain. You can ask if I've ever lost money before, which I haven't, knock on wood. I had a lender this morning ask me that same thing. I haven't lost any money yet, but I've had deals where can't pay the interest payment, or running behind, being late with loan payments. But I think because we were communicating about everything that's going on with the deal, and we shared a breakdown of how the deal is operating, I think that has helped a ton. So knock on wood, I have not lost any money yet. So thank God. Thank God. I think one of the things too is just I don't want to brag, but I think I'm a good communicator, and I treat my PMLs as how I would like to be treated. Like, I want to know what's going on. I want to know if it's good, it's bad. If you tell me this is when I'm gonna update you, and if it's the 5th and you're not updating me, or the 6th and the 7th and 8th, and I don't hear from you, and I'm running you down for stuff, then I start getting worried. So whatever is it that for me, if I promise or tell you that I'm gonna do, I wanna stand by my word and do it as well. So what else? I'm here thinking what I've been seeing in the space as well. I know a lot of persons, like a lot of experienced investors rather, that I'm working with, is that as much as they're doing a fix and flip and they know that they can get the project done in 3 months, they're still borrowing funds for 6 months. And the reason being is because they want to be extremely safe, right? They want to be super safe. They're accounting for holding times, days on markets, all that stuff. And I'm finding that persons, because they're so desperate to get a deal done, or they want to get the deal funded, they're like, oh, I take the money for 3 months, but you know that you're going to need more than 3 months. And some persons will just risk it and be like, you know what, I can ask for a loan extension and I can pay an interest payment. But I don't think I wouldn't do that. Everyone is different. But if I know that I need the money for X time, I rather just lose out on a deal rather than take a money thinking, oh, I can find another PML to replace them. Like for me, I think in 3 months, that's just very risky. The time I'm taking and trying to find a PML, by month 2, I'm like, I could have taken that energy and effort into trying to make that property money or doing something like that, you know? What else, guys? If you have questions, again, drop them in the chat. What have I been seeing as well about capital space? Some books, and I'm re-listening this book. I think I've listened to this book 3 times already. It's Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. I think every time I listen to that book, I get something. I get a whole different message or a whole different perspective about pitching. I've also read his book, Flip the Script. That one was pretty good. And a lot of my books, because I'm trying to master this raising capital, trying to get creative, I start tapping into finding persons who are raising capital for like crypto funds or some just different things outside of real estate. I've gotten some really cool ideas from how persons are raising capital to buy art, how they're structuring deals and using private money to buy art. Can you imagine that? And just hearing the techniques and the strategies that they're using, I like listening to those things now, because then I can incorporate that to raise private capital for real estate, take the same strategies and concepts and just twist it and just apply it to real estate. So definitely re-listening to other books that I've listened to before for raising capital, and just hearing how persons are raising capital for, like, different fund managers are raising capital as well, whether it's, as I said, crypto fund, VC fund. There's so many different funds. It's just amazing how they're finding persons with capital. And it just always comes back to, it's who you know, who's in your network, right? It's really who's in your network And it's really all about building the relationships. It's like, who can I call when I need this? So it's like you got to keep building that network. Step outside of real estate networking events. Find galas, find fundraising events within your area, find a charity event, find a volunteer event. So many different events within your local community that you can just become a part of or even attend. And when you attend those events and get into those spaces, a lot of time persons there are not raising private cap or not in real estate. But when you start building your network and telling persons what is it that you are doing, it's like now you're tapping into a whole different space of people who have capital, who or persons who know other individuals who have capital. An example of this is because I've always learned that if I want to raise capital, I need to go join a country club, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to get up and go join a country club. I mean, I wanted to do it, but a part of me was like, I don't know what the first step. Yes, I will join a country club, and then what? And because I was active, I'm very active in my local chamber of commerce. I know another individual, and they're like, Keleisha, we're all going golfing. You should join us. And just because I went to that golfing event, I met other persons on the golf course, and now we just do it a ton. So again, it's really your network. It's really who you kind of try to push yourself outside of real estate and connect with those people. I think a lot of times we try to only connect with people within the real estate space, but you got to remember that everyone in the real estate space, we're all looking for money. Like we all need money, right? So you got to just step outside of that. Now I still attend networking events, real estate related networking events, but I'm way more intentional now of finding other local events that I can become a part of. For example, there are like small business owners groups on Facebook, and I found a lot of these groups on Facebook, and I'll just join these groups. And when I attend these events, you have business owners, you have who own like cafes or dog training business and so many different things. And those are the type of people you want to be around, because they now start asking, they now know what you're doing. They have connection with a whole different set of people who are not even in real estate. And when you start sharing what you're doing, they're like, huh. Now what they do is that if they meet someone who they know want to get into real estate, they're like, oh, I know somebody that can help you. And they just made the connection, right? So you really gotta step outside of that. Jasper said, hi, Jasper. Um, I do have a question, a little off topic. How do you vet PML? I've heard of people backing out last minute. Do you have backup PMLs just in case one person falls out? Ooh, that is a fantastic question. Um, hi. Honestly, it happens all the time, and you cannot, it's something that you cannot stop from happening. It has happened to me a ton, where you even drop the PMLs like I'm in, you either create the LLC or title drop the paperwork and just the PML disappears. It happens, which is why I highly recommend you never stop raising capital until that money hit escrow. So even if a lender is like, hey, I'm interested in this deal, you still keep raising capital for it. You don't advertise, oh, I got the deal funded, I just closed the deal. No. Even if someone else express interest, you just let that person know, hey, um, the I have someone who we're drafting paperwork right now, but if anything changes, you'll be next in line, right? So you don't want to tell them that it's no longer available. You always keep raising capital until the funds hit escrow. So always have a backup PML. I really love this question because I can't tell you the amount of times PMLs have backed out. Like we talk, they're like, we're good, follow up, we're good, drop the paperwork, good. And then they just went MIA. And I had to, it's a good thing that I was still marketing for that particular deal. Then I managed to get another funding. Now, not all the time when a PML backs out, that you're gonna find a backup plan. And another thing to know is that if you find a PML and title company start drafting the paperwork and that PML backs out, a lot of times you still have to pay for those paperwork. So before even I start doing any paperwork to vet that PML, I'm ensuring I have a phone conversation and I'm ensuring that they understand the deal fully. We go over the terms. So if it's 12% for 6 months, I'm stating what that figure is. So if it's $2,000, hey, it's 12%. This is the amount. You're making $2,000. Your monthly payment is going to be $150 per month. This is the risk. Um, this is the exit strategy. So I'm breaking things down and you try not to assume. So I go over everything about the deal. I go over what documents that we're going to provide, who's drafting that paperwork, how soon we need the funds. And I'm finding out as well, what's the source of funds? A lot of times persons forget to ask, where's the money coming from? Because you might think, okay, I can close this deal on Friday, right? Or I can close this deal on Wednesday and today's Monday. But that lender is getting their funds from an IRA account, which it won't happen by Wednesday, because that means you need to have the paperwork from title or whoever is drafting your paperwork. You need to get over to that paperwork to the lender, right? So they can provide that paperwork to their custodian. The custodian now needs to review those paperwork, make sure it's good before they give approval to wire the funds. So, and then you have to account for an additional day or two if the custodian is like, hey, this paperwork needs to be changed. And then now you have to go back to the attorney and make that correction. And then you got to send it back to them. So I ask those information, especially if it's that you're going into equity and you're creating an LLC. Have multiple conversations with that lender to make sure it's good. You're like, hey, are you still in? And you got to be straight up too. Like, let them know that I'm just verifying all these things, because if once we start drafting the paperwork, we have to account for that cost, and you let them know. So I just want to make sure that you're still in, because if the title or the attorney start drafting any paperwork, or if I submit for a new LLC to be created and you back out, I have to soak up that cost. So you just let them know that as well, Jasper. So that's some ways how I vet a PML. And you will have PMLs who back out last minute. So you should always keep raising private capital until the money hits escrow from the first one. That's when you will stop raising private capital. So yeah, you're welcome, honey. You are welcome. All right, guys. So keep asking more questions about deal. This is the way for you to pick my brain about raising capital, how I'm finding lenders, how I'm structuring deals. And I get very creative with deals. Sometimes persons ask, like, how do you come up with this structure? And I always tell them because I'm looking on the actual deal in front of me. I'm looking on the numbers, and I'm also I have an idea what the PML wants. So sometimes I'll find a deal and the lender's like, I'm good to go. But I always ask, what is it that you want, right? Do you want interest payments? Do you want tax write-offs? Why do you want tax write-offs? How soon are you looking for it, right? So if you're able to figure out what the lender wants, you can structure the deal that creates a win-win situation for both parties involved. So I've done deals where PML has equity partnership. They have equity in the deal. And because they wanted more tax write-off, when I'm going to give them a K1, I will show that they own X percent. So even though on paper they own 10%, I'm going to put on the K1 that, okay, they own 30%. That way they get more tax write-off as well. So you got to find out, oh my God, my nose. you have to find out, like, what is the end goal for that lender and what is it that they really want. And when you have those numbers in front of you, you'll know what you're able to give, right? So sometimes we'll look on a deal and be like, okay, we can give 10 to 12%. But when a lender comes in, you're like, hey, I want to do this deal, but I want 20%. And then you're like, huh? Some person, because they really want the money, you will take that 20%, but put it back. Look on what is that 20% return? How does that affect my bottom line? Don't just jump to say, yes, that will work because you need the money. You got to see, if I give 20%, oh crap, that's going to take away about $300 in my cash flow, which will make me operate in negative. And I don't even have enough money set aside for reserves. Can I really do that? Right? So you really got to look on, and you got to be straight up too, like with the lender. Hey, I would love that. I've done deals where turn down lenders where I'm like, hey, I would love that, but here's why I can't do this. And I'm so transparent that I'm sharing with them the deal, the numbers. I'm sharing, this is how much we're gonna make if you bring X amount of money. If I give you 20%, I'm sinking myself. And I can't do that. And a lot of times they will be like, hey, that I understand, and move on. Some person will be like, I appreciate this for sharing it with me. I'll do the 10 or 12%. Like they would literally do it, but just don't take just because of the rate. And you're so desperate for the money and you want to do a deal, you take a super high interest rate. Now you also look on, if you are asking, you're like, okay, I want to do 10%. And the lender asks you, no, I will do it, but I want 13 or 12%. Don't just say no. Like, look on what's the difference. Because a lot of times, though, that 2% maybe equal like $50 extra in interest payments. Like, it can be as small as $50. So why not just increase that? You're going to lose a lender because the 12, 13% seems too high, when really it accounts for like $50. Right? So before saying no to things, if you don't know the numbers off your head, before saying no, really work it out so you know exactly like what does that amount equates to. Like all the time, guys, your numbers, when you're seeing the numbers, that's going to help you to make a decision. And a lot of times we forget that we can just put things on paper. Just look on a deal. The deal is what tells you, based on the numbers, it tells you how you can structure it, what you can offer, not you just like throwing things out there as well. I have my pencil here as if I'm like gonna be writing, and you guys can see what I am writing, but you cannot. So keep asking those questions, guys. These are good questions that you are all you all are asking about raising capital. Um, Another thing too is a lot of persons post when that, oh my God, I've raised this amount of money, I've used this money for private capital. But another thing that people don't really talk about is you're not going to raise capital for every single deal. Trust me, the deal can be so good. Like it could be really good, but for some reason it was just a bad timing. Sometimes it's not the deal, sometimes it's not you, it's just bad timing for that particular deal. And it happens, right? It really happens. Um, what else would I say as well? Another tip or things that I'm experiencing or things that I'm doing. Um, I know some persons dabble into different things for private money, EMD, gap funding, Gator, double closing, and all that things. If you're completely new, I would say start off with one and understand it. Just understand one. So if you want to do EMD, understand that process of lending with EMD or borrowing EMD. Understand that process. And then when you're comfortable to a point, you don't got to master it. When you're comfortable to a point, then you transition into doing gap funding. Then you transition into doing longer term loans. But there's so many different things out there, so many lending opportunities, especially for persons with capital. You see those super high interest rate, 15, 20%. I mean, it is possible, but always look on the deal. Always look on how's my money safe, right? It's not just about, yes, having the promissory note and the deed of trust. I talked about this earlier. Yes, having this is good, but What else can you do to make sure that your money is protected? Like, what else can you really, really do to ensure you want to get your money back? Because you're all going into this so you can lend, make money, be in and out, and rinse and repeat. That's it. The worst nightmare is for you to get in and you don't make your money back, or the borrower disappears. And even borrowers as well, like, don't skew your numbers. Don't, just because you want to get the deal funded, you're like, oh, you can sell the property for this amount of money and blah blah. Like, be so transparent and honest with yourself with those numbers, because at the end of the day, you're gonna set yourself up for success. If you don't account for holding costs, if you don't account for closing costs, right? Who's gonna pay for that? If you are not even doing that at the beginning, you are setting yourself up for failure. And I've seen so many times where persons are like, oh, you can use this property for MTR, STR. What are the numbers? Yes, it can rent for 4,000, but is that the best case scenario? What about not saying every single month I'm gonna generate $4,000? If low months I'm generating $3,000, am I still able to cover my expenses? Am I still able to cover the private money lender? And another thing too, the interest payments that you are paying a private money lender, guys, that is an expense that you have each month. And I'm seeing where persons are not accounting for that interest payment. So you have income, you have the PITI, you have HOA, you have everything else, reserves. And then you have, oh, cash flow 300. Okay. But the PML interest payment is $400. So where's that coming from? The PML interest, it is an expense. So if you're getting a property, ensure that that is accounted for, right? Especially like these, for example, for me, when doing SDRs, I'm accounting for Airbnb fees. That 3% goes a long way. I am accounting for all the average fees that they're taking out to remit. So I want to know that, okay, even in my worst times, I can still pay my mortgage payment. I can still pay the private money lender. I can still pay cleaning crew. I can still put aside a little bit of money for reserves and account for all those things are taken care of. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you manage that relationship with your private money lender, because once you provide a good experience with that lender, it's going to be so much easier for them to lend you more money or even refer someone to you as well. Hi, Tanisha. Hi, girlfriend. Um, what else is there as well? Guys, feel free. I know we have like a few minutes left, but if you have any other questions or anything like that, you can just drop them in the chat. Any questions about raising capital, how I'm structuring deals, the simplest thing, anything that comes to your mind, just drop them. Like, no questions is too dumb or anything like that. Tanisha said, I just sent my lender photos of our newest MTR. He's so chill now, wants to give me more money. Yes, you go, girl. That's always like a really good win. And now you're like, I just want to find more deals. And that's when you guys provide an experience for your lender, right? You borrow their money, keep them in the loop. Keep them in the loop, let them feel a part of it. Share the project when you're renovating it, designing it, everything like that. Share that process when you're done. Share it with them. Hey, this is the final product, this is going to be the next step, blah blah blah. Keep them in the loop, because for them it's like, man, I lent money and they use my money for something good. So, and Tanisha can use those photos, post it on our Facebook. Hey, just completed this MTR and I use private money, blah, blah, blah. She can literally just post that. Or she can post it and make us to say that, thank you for my private money lenders for making this happen, done. And whoever is on her network is gonna see it and be like, oh, right? They don't have to comment, they don't have to like, but they're gonna reach out to her privately. or she's going to plant the seed because now persons are going to be thinking that they're seeing what she's doing and they may have money sitting down and Tanisha doesn't even know, and then be like, I'm going to reach out to her because I'm ready to get into this. So in sharing those things, you're planting the seeds for persons who are on your network that you have no clue has private capital as well. But guys, this was like so much fun. Thank you all for tuning in. As you ask me questions about raising capital, I share what I'm seeing in the space with raising capital, the pitfalls that I'm seeing as well, and all those things. So I hope that this was very valuable to you guys. Thank you for subscribers as well. Man, me and this it's crazy. But this episode is always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. And thank you for everyone for always supporting, or subscribers, for always sharing, for liking and commenting as well. Like, you guys are amazing. We appreciate you guys a ton, and for re-listening to episodes and all that stuff. So hope that today was very helpful in some way, somehow, and that you guys can take the tips, the lessons and the experience and all that stuff that was shared today, so you yourself can raise some private capital and invest with purpose. So I'll see you guys next week.